You share something painful, a loss, a struggle, a moment when you really needed someone to understand. And instead of comfort, you get a blank stare, a quick subject change, or worse, they make it about themselves. You walk away feeling more alone than before you spoke. And you wonder, is it me? Am I expecting too much? Am I being too sensitive? Here's what most people don't understand. Not everyone feels what you feel. Not everyone can. Some people move through the world without the ability to connect to your pain or anyone else's. And the hardest part is, they often look completely normal. This isn't about labeling people as bad. It's about recognizing a pattern that protects you from giving your heart to someone who cannot receive it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Begin each day by telling yourself, 'Today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, and selfishness.' Today, I'll show you 7 signs that someone lacks the ability to truly empathize." Number 5 is the one that confuses people most because it looks almost like care, but leaves you feeling emptier than before. By the end, you'll know exactly who deserves your emotional investment and who will only drain it. If you've ever felt unseen by someone who should have understood, stay with me. Number 1, they don't react when you're in pain. The clearest sign is often the simplest one. You're hurting, and they don't seem to notice. Or worse, they notice and feel nothing at all. You've experienced this emptiness. You share something painful, a loss, a disappointment, a moment when you really needed someone to understand. You look at their face expecting to see something, concern, sadness, anything that shows they feel the weight of what you just said. Instead, you get nothing, a blank expression, an unchanged tone. Maybe they nod and move on like you just mentioned the weather. Your pain lands on them and somehow disappears without a trace. Normal people feel something when someone they care about is hurting. Their face changes, their voice softens, they lean in. Something shifts in their energy, but this person stays flat, completely unmoved by your suffering. I watched this happen to a woman named Elena. Her father had just passed away. She called someone she thought was close to her, someone she expected to lean on during the worst moment of her life. She needed comfort, understanding, just someone to acknowledge the enormity of what she was going through. Instead, the person listened for maybe 30 seconds, then said, "That's too bad. So anyway, about this weekend, are we still going?" Elena was stunned. She'd just shared the most devastating news of her life, and it landed like nothing. No pause, no acknowledgement of her pain, just a redirect to their own agenda, as if her father's death was a minor interruption. Later, Elena looked back and realized this wasn't the first time. Every moment she'd been vulnerable, every struggle, every tear, every time she needed someone, the response was exactly the same. Flat, disconnected, unmoved. She'd just never let herself see the pattern until now. Here's what this reveals. Empathy isn't just intellectual understanding that someone is suffering. It's feeling something in response. When that feeling is absent, when your deepest pain creates no internal reaction in them, you're dealing with someone who lacks the wiring for connection. This isn't always obvious at first. They might say the right words occasionally. But watch the face. Watch the energy. Watch what happens in their eyes when you're at your lowest. If your worst moments don't create any shift in them, that tells you everything you need to know. Epictetus taught, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond." Part of choosing wisely is recognizing who cannot respond to you emotionally and adjusting your expectations to protect yourself. You've probably given your pain to someone who couldn't hold it, trusted someone with your vulnerability, and received emptiness in return. Most people have. Pay attention to how people respond when you're hurting. Not just their words, their energy. Do they lean in or pull away? Does their face change? Does something shift in their presence? If your pain creates no visible response, that's not a bad day. That's information. No reaction to your pain is the first sign, but the next one goes further. They don't just fail to feel your pain, they turn every conversation back to themselves. Number 2, every conversation becomes about them. You start sharing something important. Before you even finish, they've already redirected the conversation back to themselves. Every single time. You've felt this frustration. You mention a struggle you're going through, and suddenly they're talking about their own struggle, which is somehow always worse. You share good news, and within seconds, they're talking about their own accomplishments. You open up about something personal, and it becomes a launching pad for their story. It's not that they interrupt occasionally. Everyone does that sometimes. It's that nothing you share ever stays about you. Every topic, every emotion, every moment becomes a doorway to their own experience. Your story is never the destination. It's just a trigger for theirs. Let me tell you about a man named Jordan. He'd been friends with someone for years and never noticed the pattern until one conversation made it impossible to ignore. Jordan had just been diagnosed with a serious health condition. Scary news. He needed to talk about it. He needed someone to listen, really listen, while he processed what was happening. He called this friend expecting support. Within 2 minutes, the friend was talking about their own health scare from 3 years ago, then their doctor, then their treatment, then their recovery, then how hard it had been for them. Jordan never got to finish his own sentence. Every time he tried to return to his situation, the conversation veered back to his friend. By the end of the call, Jordan knew more about his friend's medical history than his friend knew about what Jordan was actually facing. He hung up, feeling worse than before. Not because his friend said anything cruel, but because the conversation was never about him. Even when it should have been. Even when he desperately needed it to be. Here's what this pattern reveals. People who lack empathy often can't hold space for someone else's experience. They can only relate through themselves. Your story isn't interesting to them. It's just a trigger for their own narrative. They're not trying to understand you. They're waiting for their turn to talk. This isn't always intentional cruelty. Sometimes they genuinely believe they're connecting by sharing their experience. But the result is the same. You walk away feeling unseen, unheard, and somehow smaller than before the conversation started. Seneca wrote, "One of the most beautiful qualities of true friendship is to understand and to be understood." If someone consistently fails to understand you, or even try, that's not friendship. That's a one-way street disguised as connection. You've probably had conversations like this, left feeling emptier than when you arrived, wondered why talking to certain people always drains you instead of fills you. Now you know why. Notice who holds space for you and who hijacks it. After conversations, ask yourself, did I feel heard? Or did I become an audience for their story? The pattern will reveal the truth. If you've realized that real connection means being heard, not just being an audience, type, "I deserve to be seen" below. To remind yourself and others that your story matters too. Making everything about themselves reveals disconnection, but the next sign is more subtle. They fake emotions they don't actually feel. Number 3, their emotional responses feel performed. They say the right words. Their face makes the right shape. But something feels off, like watching someone act a part they've memorized but don't actually understand. You've felt this strange emptiness before. Someone responds to your pain with what sounds like sympathy. "Oh, I'm so sorry. That must be so hard for you." The words are correct, but the tone doesn't quite match. The timing feels slightly off. The emotion doesn't reach their eyes. It's like watching someone who learned human connection from a textbook, technically accurate but emotionally hollow. You can't point to anything specifically wrong, but something in you knows something doesn't add up. There was a woman named Grace who dated someone like this for over a year. He always said the right things. "I'm here for you. I understand how you feel." That must be really difficult. Every response sounded supportive. Every phrase seemed caring. Grace told herself she was lucky to have someone so emotionally available, but she always felt a strange emptiness after their conversations. She couldn't explain it. He said comforting words. So why didn't she feel comforted? He expressed concern. So why did she still feel alone? One day, she finally understood what was wrong. She was crying about something that had deeply hurt her. He said all the right things, but his body stayed completely still. His voice remained flat and unchanged. His eyes watched her like she was a problem to be solved, not a person to be felt. He wasn't cold in an obvious way. He was performing warmth. The words were there. The feeling behind them wasn't. And that gap, that invisible distance between what he said and what he meant, was what left Grace feeling so empty every time. Here's why this is so confusing. People who lack empathy often learn to mimic it. They study what they're supposed to say. They copy facial expressions they've seen others make. They give responses that sound right on the surface. But mimicry isn't feeling. And when you're receiving performed emotion instead of real emotion, something in you senses the difference. You feel the absence, even when you can't name it, even when the words sound perfect. Trust that feeling. It's telling you something important. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Authenticity cannot be performed forever. Eventually, the gap between appearance and reality becomes visible to anyone paying close attention. You've probably received comfort that didn't comfort you, heard caring words that left you feeling colder, wondered why someone's support felt like a script instead of a soul. Now you understand why. Pay attention to the energy behind the words, not just the words themselves. Does their expression match their tone? Does their comfort actually reach you? If something feels hollow, honor that instinct. Your gut knows the difference between real and rehearsed. Performed emotions reveal a mask, but the next sign cuts deeper. They use your vulnerabilities as weapons against you. Number 4, they use your vulnerabilities against you. You opened up to them once. You trusted them with something private. And later, in a moment of conflict, they threw it back in your face like a weapon. You've felt this betrayal. You shared a fear, a weakness, a mistake from your past that still carries shame. You trusted them enough to be vulnerable, to let them see a part of you that you don't show just anyone. And for a while, nothing happened. They held your secret. You felt safe. Then one day, in an argument or a moment of tension, they used it, mentioned it to hurt you, twisted your own words against you, made you regret ever trusting them with the truth. I knew a man named Marcus who learned this lesson in the most painful way. He trusted a close friend with something he'd never told anyone, a failure from his past that still carried deep shame. He'd lost a business years ago, made mistakes that cost him everything. It took him years to recover, and the memory still stung. His friend listened, seemed understanding, even said something supportive. Marcus felt relieved to finally share it with someone. Months later, during a disagreement about something completely unrelated, that friend said, "No wonder things don't work out for you. You've always been a failure. You told me yourself." Marcus felt those words like a physical blow, not because they were true, but because they came from a place he thought was safe. His vulnerability hadn't been received with care. It had been stored as ammunition, waiting for the right moment to fire. That's when Marcus understood something painful. Some people don't collect your secrets to understand you. They collect them to control you. Your trust isn't sacred to them. It's leverage. Here's what this behavior reveals. People with empathy feel the weight of what you share. They understand that vulnerabilities are sacred, gifts of trust that should never be weaponized. When someone uses your pain against you, it shows they never felt the gravity of receiving it in the first place. To them, your secrets aren't connection, they're currency, and currency is only valuable when it's spent. Epictetus said, "Keep silence for the most part, and speak only when you must, and then briefly." Be careful who receives your vulnerabilities. Not everyone treats the inside of your heart with the respect it deserves. You've probably trusted someone who didn't deserve it, shared something sacred and watched it become a weapon, felt that specific betrayal of having your own words used to wound you. Most people have. Test trust slowly. Share small things first and watch how they're handled. Do they keep small confidences? Do they use minor vulnerabilities against you in small ways? If small things get weaponized, larger ones will face the same fate, or worse. Or, if you're learning to protect who gets access to your heart, hit subscribe. Let's keep growing together on this journey. Using vulnerabilities as weapons shows calculation, not connection. But the next sign is the one that confuses people most, because it looks almost like care. Number 5, they offer help that only serves themselves. This is the sign that confuses people most, because it looks almost like care. They help you, they show up, they seem generous. But later, you realize every favor came with an invisible price tag. You've experienced this trap. Someone offered support when you needed it, lent you something, did you a favor. It seemed kind at the time. You felt grateful, maybe even lucky to have them. But then things shifted. They started reminding you of what they did, holding it over your head, using it as leverage whenever you disagreed. After everything I've done for you. Their help wasn't a gift. It was an investment, and now they're collecting with interest. There was a woman named Sophia who had a friend who seemed incredibly generous. This friend helped her move apartments, lent her money during a difficult time, was always there with offers of support whenever Sophia struggled. Everyone told Sophia how lucky she was to have such a caring friend. But over time, a pattern emerged that nobody else could see. Every time Sophia disagreed with her friend about anything, no matter how small, the favors came up. I helped you when nobody else would. You wouldn't even have that apartment without me. After everything I've done, this is how you treat me. Sophia started feeling trapped. She couldn't voice her own opinions without being reminded of debts she didn't know she'd signed up for. The friendship that once felt supportive now felt like a cage. Every act of kindness had been a bar. That's when Sophia realized the truth. The help was never free. It was never about her. It was about ownership. Her friend wasn't generous because she cared. She was generous because it gave her control. Here's what separates real generosity from this. People with empathy help because they want to ease your burden. Full stop. Nothing expected, nothing tracked. People without empathy help because they want something. Control, obligation, leverage, or just the image of being generous while building chains. This sign is confusing because it wears the mask of care. They show up. They help. How can that be bad? But genuine care doesn't keep score. Genuine care doesn't remind you of debts. If every favor comes with an expiration date stamped with guilt, that's not help. That's manipulation dressed as kindness. Seneca wrote, "A gift with a hook attached is not a gift." True generosity asks nothing in return. If someone's help always comes with conditions, visible or invisible, it's a transaction, not kindness. You've probably accepted help that became a leash, felt grateful until you felt trapped, watched kindness transform into control. Most people have. Notice how people respond when you can't reciprocate. Do they understand? Or do they make you feel guilty? Real care continues even when nothing comes back. False care turns cold the moment balance isn't maintained. Help with strings attached reveals motive, not care. But the next sign shows what happens when you confront them. They feel absolutely nothing. Number 6. They show no guilt when they hurt you. They hurt you. You tell them. And instead of remorse, you get deflection, excuses, or a blank stare that says, "I don't see what the problem is." You've lived this confusion. Something they did caused you pain. You gathered the courage to tell them, clearly, calmly, hoping they'd understand. You expected them to feel bad, or at least acknowledge why you're hurt. Instead, you got, "I didn't mean it that way. You're being too sensitive. I don't see why this is such a big deal." No guilt, no real apology, just dismissal, or worse, genuine confusion about why you're even upset. Like your pain is a puzzle they can't solve rather than something they caused. Picture this. A man named Thomas finally confronted someone close about a pattern of hurtful behavior. He'd stayed quiet for months, absorbing things he shouldn't have absorbed. But finally, he spoke up. He explained clearly, stayed calm, gave specific examples, told them exactly how their actions had affected him. The person listened, nodded occasionally, then shrugged. "I guess I'm sorry if you felt that way, but honestly, I don't really see what I did wrong." That was it. No moment of recognition, no genuine remorse, not even curiosity about how they'd caused pain. Just a hollow phrase designed to end the conversation and a complete lack of interest in understanding. Thomas sat there in silence, realizing something painful. He wasn't dealing with someone who hurt him accidentally and felt bad about it. He was dealing with someone who couldn't feel the weight of hurting him at all. The guilt that should have been there simply wasn't. Here's why this matters. Guilt is the emotional response that tells us we've caused harm to someone we care about. It's uncomfortable, but it's also what makes us careful with people. It's what makes us better. It's what makes us human. When someone lacks this response, hurting you carries no internal cost. They might apologize to end the conversation, but they don't feel it. And because they don't feel it, they're likely to hurt you the same way again, and again, and again. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change." This requires something essential, the ability to feel the impact of your actions on others. Someone who feels no guilt has no reason to change, and no amount of explaining will create what isn't there. You've probably confronted someone who made you feel crazy for being hurt, received apologies that weren't apologies, walked away more confused than when you started. Now you understand why. Watch how someone responds when you tell them they've hurt you. Do they get defensive immediately, dismiss your feelings, turn it back on you, or do they pause, reflect, and genuinely try to understand? The response tells you everything about what's inside them. If you're learning that a real apology feels different from an empty one, hit subscribe. We're building clarity together. No guilt for causing pain reveals an empty space where conscience should be. But the final sign shows something even darker. They seem almost pleased when you struggle. Number 7, they seem satisfied when others struggle. You are going through something difficult, and something in their eyes looks almost pleased, not openly, but there's a flicker, a subtle energy that doesn't match what it should be. You've sensed this wrongness before. When you're struggling, they don't seem burdened by it. They seem lighter, more engaged, almost interested in a way that feels uncomfortable. They ask detailed questions about your problems, not to help, but like they're savoring the story. When things get worse for you, they lean in. When things improve, they pull back. Your pain somehow makes them more present. Your happiness makes them distant. I'll never forget watching this unfold with a woman named Natalie. She had a friend who was always there during hard times, but in a way that never actually felt supportive. When Natalie's long-term relationship ended painfully, this friend wanted every detail, called constantly, asked probing questions, seemed more engaged than ever. When Natalie's job fell through a few months later, the same thing happened. Sudden availability, intense interest, a presence that felt almost hungry. But when Natalie started healing, when she got a new job she loved and began dating someone wonderful, the friend went quiet. Calls stopped, interest faded, the warmth disappeared. Then one day, Natalie mentioned she was having a tough week. Within hours, the friend was back, texting, calling, full of questions, more attentive than she'd been in months. That's when Natalie finally saw it clearly. This person didn't care about her. They cared about her pain. Her struggles made them feel better about their own life. Her failures gave them something her successes never could, a sense of superiority. Here's the darkest truth about people who lack empathy. Some of them don't just fail to feel your pain, they quietly feed on it. Your struggle makes them feel superior. Your failure makes their own situation more bearable. Your suffering is their comfort. This isn't always conscious cruelty. Sometimes they don't even realize they're doing it, but the pattern is unmistakable. They come alive when you're drowning and fade when you're thriving. Your worst moments are their favorite moments. Seneca wrote, "He who envies others admits their inferiority." People who feel satisfied by your pain are revealing their own emptiness. Your struggles give them temporary relief from feeling inadequate themselves. Your happiness threatens that relief, so they avoid it. You've probably had someone like this in your life, someone whose attention increased when you suffered and decreased when you succeeded. Someone whose support felt more like surveillance. Now you understand what you were sensing. Track who shows up and when. Notice who engages most during your lowest points and disappears during your highs. The people who truly care will celebrate your wins as loudly as they support your losses. Those who only appear for your pain aren't supporting you. They're feeding on you. Protect your energy. You deserve people who want you to rise, not those who need you to fall. 7 signs you're dealing with someone who lacks all empathy. They don't react when you're in pain. Every conversation becomes about them. Their emotions feel performed. They use your vulnerabilities against you. They offer help that only serves themselves. They show no guilt when they hurt you, and they seem satisfied when you struggle. If this helped you see someone more clearly, subscribe so we can keep building this awareness together. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to not be like your enemy. See clearly, protect wisely, and save your heart for those who can actually feel it." Not everyone deserves your empathy, especially those who have none to give.